subscribe to our videos so that more people can hear the Word of God.
Good morning and welcome to Tuesday. And today we're going to look at 1.5 verses. So we are in chapter 4 and we are setting the stage for the famous story of the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman. So I'm going to read verse 5 to 6b. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there. So we're going to just stop right there, 6a. All right. So I've never heard a lot of information about Jacob's well, but I did want us to talk about this because I think it's an important piece of Jewish history, biblical history. So here's Jacob's well, and there's a lot of events that was associated in that area. So this is where Abraham first came when he came into Canaan. And this is where God first appeared to him and renewing his promise, saying, I am going to give you this land and you're going to have amazing descendants. You're going to have so many multitudes of descendants that you won't even be able to count them. So this is an amazing place, right, that God met people. And then this is where Jacob safely came with his wives and his kids when he was running away from Laban. This is where he stopped at. And this is where he came. And also Jacob built an altar here to God. And this also, I didn't know, this is where Joseph's bones were buried when he was carried back from Egypt. So remember, Joseph goes to Egypt and he tells people, you know, you're going to be in Egypt for a while, basically. But he says, don't leave me here. You are going to go back. This is not our home. Our home is Canaan. That's God's promised land. So when you leave, dig up my bones and take them with you. And this is where they were buried. And this is also where Joshua made the covenant with Israel. This is where he says to them, basically, choose who you're going to serve. Are you going to serve Yahweh or are you going to serve these false gods? And this is the part where, this is the area where he makes that statement, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. So all these amazing parts of the Jewish history were in this area at this site, right? And Jesus came there for these people, for the Samaritans. But I also want to think that this here's God in the flesh in this spot where all these things happen, all these encounters with God happen. And I think it was also momentous for Jesus to be like, this is where all these great events happen. Because it's such an important place in Jewish history. But think about this. This was such an important place. Like, think about the places that maybe you have visited, like in our country or in your family, you know, like your home where your parents grew up or you grew up or something. And was such an important place in history, in their history. But this is a place where the Jewish people avoided, right? Because of the people there. The people that they avoided, that God loved. Think about that. They could have had this moment to just reflect. And I think it's important also for us to have those little monuments, right? Whether they're physical places or just places in our hearts that we think of, right? I think of like when you go back to your church that you grew up in and you're like, oh, that's where I got baptized, right? Or that's the pew where I dedicated my life to follow him. Or that's where God called me into ministry, right? And so all those places, those are important because they remind us. They remind us of what God has done. So kind of a different spin on the story, right? Of just looking at this one verse. But I think it's important for us to I want you to just take time right now to think about what are those places in your life, whether they're physical or maybe a camp that you met Jesus at, or a person, right, that you run into, and your Sunday school teacher that you run into, and you're like, oh, wow, that person loved Jesus and taught me so much. And just a reminder again of how God has brought you to him. And that's important for us to remember how God chose us and he brought us through this journey that we're in. So reflect on that today. Have a good day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Remember, 5 minutes in the Word can change your life.